Flight attendant orders black twins to clean shoes with tongue. CEO father takes down airline. Imagine being 16 years old, on your knees in an airplane aisle, with a flight attendant standing over you, pointing at her designer shoes and saying the words, "I said lick them clean, or get off my plane." The entire cabin goes silent. Passengers are frozen in their seats. Some are gasping, others are pulling out their phones, hands shaking as they hit record. And there, on his knees, is Aiden, a 16-year-old boy whose hands are trembling so badly he can barely breathe. Next to him is his twin sister, Amara, her fists clenched so tight her knuckles have turned white. The flight attendant, Veronica Shaw, leans down closer, her voice dripping with venom. "What's the matter? This is what people like you are good for." But what Veronica doesn't know, what she can't see, is that in first class, separated by nothing but a thin curtain, a tall man in an expensive suit is slowly removing his headphones. His eyes darken as he hears every single word, and the look on his face? It's the calm before a storm that's about to tear this airline apart. Because those twins? They're his children. And this flight attendant just made the biggest mistake of her entire life. But let me back up. Because to understand how we got to this moment, you need to know who Aiden and Amara Thompson really are. These aren't just any teenagers. Aiden Thompson is the quiet one, the thinker. He's got these round glasses that are always sliding down his nose, and he carries this worn-out backpack covered in debate team patches. Every single patch represents a competition he's won, an argument he's mastered. This kid dreams of becoming a civil rights attorney, just like his mother was, his late mother. And if you look closely at him on this flight, you'll see he's gripping the armrests so hard during takeoff that his fingers are turning white. He's an anxious flyer, always has been, but he's trying so hard to be brave. Amara, on the other hand, she's 4 minutes older than Aiden, and she never lets him forget it. She's the protector, the leader, the one with fire in her eyes and a scholarship to MIT already secured. Star athlete, track champion. The kind of girl who wears her mother's locket every single day and touches it whenever she needs courage. She's got a quick wit that could slice through steel, but she also knows something crucial. She knows when to stay quiet for survival, because their mother taught them that before she passed. On this particular day, these twins are flying alone from Atlanta to New York. It's their first time flying without their father, who told them he was on business and would meet them in New York. They're heading to a youth leadership summit, something they've been preparing for all year. Amara's reviewing her notes for the 100th time. Aiden's sketching in his notebook, trying to calm his nerves. They're excited, nervous, missing their mom, missing their dad. Before they left, their father Marcus pulled them close and said something that would echo in their minds for the rest of this flight. "Hold your head high, no matter what. I'll see you in New York." They had no idea how much they'd need those words. Now, let me introduce you to the woman who's about to turn their dream trip into a nightmare. Veronica Shaw. 38 years old, 15-year veteran flight attendant with an immaculate appearance and a smile so fake you could spot it from the back row. She's wearing jewelry that seems way above what a flight attendant's salary should afford. Diamond earrings, designer watch, and those shoes, the ones she's so obsessed with, they cost more than most people's rent. Veronica has this routine. When she walks down the aisle in first class, she's all sweetness and light. "Can I get you anything else, sir? Oh, what a beautiful dress, ma'am." Her smile is wide, her voice is honey. But the second she passes through that curtain into economy, something changes. Her face shifts, the mask slips, and what's underneath? Pure disdain. As she reaches the section where Aiden and Amara are seated, another flight attendant, a younger guy, notices the change in her demeanor. She mutters under her breath, just loud enough for him to hear, "Why do they always have to sit in my section?" He doesn't say anything. He's learned that Veronica Shaw doesn't like to be questioned. But here's what nobody on that plane knows yet. What Veronica Shaw definitely doesn't know. In first class, behind that curtain, separated by just a few rows and a piece of fabric, is someone who's been watching. Someone who's about to change everything. And when this man finds out what Veronica Shaw is about to do to his children, the entire airline industry is going to feel the earthquake. So if you want to see how this absolutely explosive story unfolds, if you want to witness the moment Veronica Shaw realizes exactly who she's dealing with, show some love and hit that subscribe button right now and tell me in the comment below, from where are you watching the story? I'm curious to know, share and comment, because what happens next is going to leave you absolutely speechless. Now let's get back to Flight 2847, because a storm is coming, and Veronica Shaw is standing right in its path. 20 minutes into the flight, everything is calm. Aiden has finally relaxed his grip on the armrests. Amara is highlighting something in her notes. The hum of the engines has settled into a comfortable rhythm. The twins are actually starting to enjoy themselves. And then the turbulence hits. It's not severe, just a sudden bump, the kind that makes your stomach drop for a second. The seatbelt sign dings on. The captain's voice comes over the intercom asking everyone to remain seated. Nothing unusual, just normal flying. But here's the thing about turbulence. It doesn't discriminate. And at the exact moment the plane jolts, Amara has her cup of apple juice resting on her tray table. Not in her hand, not suspended in air, sitting flat on the table. The bump hits, the cup tips, and in what feels like slow motion, apple juice spills onto the armrest and splashes slightly toward the aisle. We're talking about maybe a tablespoon of liquid, a tiny puddle. The kind of spill that in any normal situation would be met with, oh, whoops, a quick wipe with a napkin, and everyone moves on with their day. Aiden sees it happen and his anxiety spikes immediately. He's already reaching for napkins before the juice even stops moving. "I'm so sorry," he says to no one in particular, just out loud, because that's what his parents taught him. When something goes wrong, you apologize, you fix it, you move forward. Amara is right there with him, grabbing napkins from the seat pocket. They're both moving quickly, trying to clean it up before it becomes a bigger mess. They're good kids, responsible kids. The kind of teenagers who don't wait to be asked to clean up after themselves. And that's when Veronica Shaw appears. She's walking down the aisle, collecting cups and trash, when she sees the spill. And I want you to understand something about what happens next. This isn't a normal reaction. This isn't the response of someone who sees a minor accident and thinks, oh, let me help with that. Veronica freezes, completely stops in her tracks. Her eyes go wide. She stares at this tiny puddle of apple juice like it's a biohazard spill. And then she gasps, loud, dramatic. The kind of gasp you'd expect if someone had just thrown a bucket of paint at her. She takes a deliberate step backward, and her voice cuts through the cabin like a knife. "Are you kidding me right now?" Aiden and Amara both look up, startled. They're already cleaning. The napkins are already in their hands. They don't understand why she's reacting this way. Veronica's face is twisted in disgust. "Do you have any idea how much these shoes cost?" And here's where it gets absurd. The twins look down at her shoes. There are maybe 3 drops of apple juice on the toe of her left shoe. 3 drops. The kind of thing that would wipe away with a single swipe of a napkin. It hasn't stained anything. It hasn't damaged anything. It's apple juice. But Veronica is acting like they've destroyed a priceless artifact. Other passengers are starting to notice. A businessman across the aisle glances over with confusion. A woman 2 rows back cranes her neck to see what the commotion is about. Everyone can see that this reaction doesn't match the situation. Amara, always the diplomatic one, immediately tries to de-escalate. "Ma'am, we're so sorry. It was an accident. We'll clean it up right away." She's already moving with the napkins, trying to reach toward Veronica's shoe to wipe away those tiny drops. Her voice is respectful, apologetic, everything you'd want it to be. And Veronica yanks her foot away like Amara's about to attack her. "Don't touch me," Veronica snaps, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. "You've done enough." Aiden's face goes pale. He's still holding napkins, frozen in place, not understanding what's happening. This isn't how adults are supposed to act. This isn't proportional. This isn't fair. And then Veronica starts in with the labels. Careless. She spits the word out like it's poison. Entitled. She's looking at these 2 kids like they've personally offended her entire existence. Disrespectful. From the galley, another flight attendant notices the commotion. His name is James. He's younger than Veronica, maybe late 20s, and he's black. He's heard Veronica's tone before. He's seen this movie play out. and something in his gut tells him this isn't going to end well. James walks over, his voice calm and professional. "Veronica, it's just a little juice. I can grab some club soda, we'll have it cleaned up in." But Veronica cuts him off with a look that could freeze fire. "I'll handle my cabin, James," she says, emphasizing the word my like she owns the entire plane. Like James has no authority here, like he should know better than to question her. James hesitates. You can see it on his face, the internal battle. He knows this is wrong. He knows those kids didn't do anything that warrants this response. But he also knows that Veronica has seniority, that she has the power to make his job miserable, that speaking up could cost him. So he steps back, and in that moment, Veronica's power goes completely unchecked. She turns back to the twins, and her voice drops into something cold and authoritative. "You're going to apologize. Properly." Aiden blinks. "Ma'am, we all ready?" "That wasn't a proper apology," Veronica interrupts. "Try again." Amara's jaw tightens. You can see her fighting every instinct to tell this woman exactly what she thinks. But she squeezes Aiden's arm, a silent message: stay calm. Don't give her ammunition. "We're very sorry for the spill," Amara says, her voice measured and controlled. "It was completely accidental, and we're happy to clean it up. It's perfect. It's sincere. It's exactly what any reasonable person would accept." Veronica tilts her head, pretending to consider it. Then she shakes her head. "Not good enough. You need to understand the severity of what you've done." And then she makes them stand. "Get up," she orders. "Both of you. Stand in the aisle." The twins exchange a glance. This is humiliating. This is wrong. But what choice do they have? They're 16 years old on an airplane at 30,000 feet. There's nowhere to go, no one to call. Their father isn't here. So they stand. Veronica makes a show of inspecting the damage. She's turning her shoe this way and that, holding it up to the light like she's examining a crime scene. Other passengers are fully paying attention now. Some are confused. Some are uncomfortable. A woman in her 60s, Mrs. Chen, is watching with growing anger. Finally, Mrs. Chen can't take it anymore. "Oh, for heaven's sake," she says, her accent revealing she's originally from somewhere in Asia, but has lived in America for decades. It was clearly an accident. They're children. Veronica's head snaps toward Mrs. Chen like a predator spotting prey. "Ma'am," Veronica says, her voice dripping with false politeness, "unless you want to be removed from this flight, I suggest you mind your business." The threat hangs in the air. Mrs. Chen's eyes widen. Other passengers shift uncomfortably. Because here's what everyone is realizing in this moment. Veronica Shaw has absolute power on this plane. She can make good on that threat. She can have anyone removed. She can ban people from the airline, and there's nothing anyone can do about it at 30,000 feet. Mrs. Chen presses her lips together but doesn't back down. Instead, she does something brilliant. She pulls out her phone and starts recording. And that's when things get worse. Veronica sees what she interprets as compliance from the passengers. Silence equals agreement in her mind. So she pushes further. "You're going to clean this up," she tells the twins. "Properly this time." She hands them one napkin. One. Single, small cocktail napkin for both of them to share. "The whole area," she adds. "I want it spotless." Amara takes the napkin, and you can see her hand shaking slightly. Not from fear, from rage. From the effort it's taking to not explode at this woman. "Ma'am, we need more napkins," Amara says reasonably. "That's all you get," Veronica responds. "Maybe you should have been more careful." And then she says the words that will haunt everyone on that plane. "Get on your knees. Clean it properly." The cabin goes silent. Absolutely silent. Because everyone, even the passengers who weren't paying attention before, understands what's happening now. This isn't about a spill anymore. This isn't about juice or shoes or cleanliness. This is about power. This is about humiliation. This is about a grown woman putting two black teenagers on their knees in front of a plane full of people. Aiden's hand starts shaking, really shaking. He looks at Amara with tears forming in his eyes, and you can see him asking the silent question, "Do we have to do this?" Amara squeezes his arm again, harder this time. She leans close and whispers something their mother used to tell them when things got hard. "Just breathe. Like Mom taught us. Don't give her the satisfaction." And then, because they don't see another choice, because they're trapped, because they're scared, These two 16-year-old honor students get on their knees in the middle of an airplane aisle with a single cocktail napkin and start cleaning up a spill they already tried to clean up. Passengers are pulling out their phones now. Some are recording, some are just staring in disbelief like they can't process what they're seeing. A young mother 3 rows back physically covers her toddler's eyes, turning the child away from the scene. And Veronica, she stands over them, hovering, watching, making sure everyone sees her authority. But she doesn't stop there. While these kids are on their knees, desperately trying to clean with inadequate supplies, trying to hold on to their dignity, Veronica starts talking, loud enough for everyone to hear. "I bet you don't have to clean up at home," she says, her voice dripping with assumptions and stereotypes. "Someone probably does it for you." Aiden flinches like he's been slapped, because their mother, their late mother, taught them to clean up after themselves, taught them responsibility, taught them dignity. Veronica isn't done. "Where are your parents anyway?" She pauses, lets the question hang. "Oh, let me guess. Absent?" That word, absent. It lands like a bomb. Their mother isn't absent by choice. She died 2 years ago. Brain aneurysm. Sudden and devastating. She was a civil rights attorney who fought her whole life for justice. And she died before seeing her children grow up. Their father isn't absent either. He's working himself to exhaustion trying to be both parents, trying to give his kids everything they need. But Veronica doesn't know any of this, and she doesn't care. Amara's jaw clenches so hard it looks like her teeth might crack. Aiden's tears start falling silently onto the napkin in his hands. But they keep cleaning, because what else can they do? Veronica turns to another passenger, speaking loudly enough for the whole section to hear. This generation has no respect, no responsibility. They think the world owes them everything. And here's what's happening in the seats around them. Mr. Harrison, a businessman in his 50s, is watching. At first, when he saw the bill, he thought maybe the kids were being careless. Maybe they deserved a stern talking to. But as this continues, as he watches this woman grind these children into the ground over nothing, something clicks in his mind. His expression shifts from disapproval to discomfort to outright concern. James, the other flight attendant, is standing in the galley now, and he looks physically ill. He's whispering to a colleague, "This isn't right. This isn't right." But he's not stopping it. He's not intervening, and that inaction is going to haunt him. Mrs. Chen is still recording, and she's muttering under her breath, "Disgraceful, absolutely disgraceful." Her hands are steady on her phone, making sure she captures every second of this abuse. The young mother with the toddler has turned her child completely away, one hand over the little one's eyes, whispering, "Don't look, baby, don't look." And in first class, behind that thin curtain, someone else is watching too. We can't see his face yet, but we can see his hand gripping the armrest. We can see tension in every line of his body. We can see him slowly, deliberately unbuckling his seatbelt. Back in economy, the twins finally finish cleaning. They've wiped down the armrest, the side of the seat, the tiny drops on Veronica's shoe. They've done everything she asked with the single inadequate napkin she gave them. They're still on their knees, and they're about to stand up, about to return to their seats, about to try to put this nightmare behind them. And that's when Veronica says, "Wait." The word stops them cold. "You missed a spot." She points at her shoe. Everyone nearby leans in, squinting, because nobody can see what she's talking about. There's nothing there. Maybe the faintest shadow where the juice was, but it's clean, it's dry, it's fine. Aiden looks up at her, confusion written all over his face. "Ma'am, we cleaned." "Are you talking back to me?" Veronica's voice goes sharp and dangerous. "You know what? I don't think you're taking this seriously. I don't think you understand the gravity of disrespecting me, my property, and this airline." She leans down, getting close to their faces, and her voice drops low. Intimate. Cruel. "Since you're already down there anyway." The twins stare at her, not understanding where this is going. Veronica points at her shoe again. "Lick it clean." Time stops. The entire cabin seems to hold its breath. Did she really just say what everyone thinks she said? Amara's head snaps up. "Excuse me?" And Veronica, emboldened by the silence, by the lack of intervention, by her absolute power in this metal tube in the sky, says it again. Louder this time. Clearer. "So there's no misunderstanding. You heard me. Lick my shoe clean, or you're getting off at the next stop and I'll make sure you're banned from this airline for life. The silence breaks. Passengers erupt. Not loudly, not violently, but there's a wave of gasps of what did she just say, of people turning to each other in disbelief. She's the one being unruly, someone shouts from the back. This is abuse, another voice calls out. Someone record this, a man yells, and multiple phones raise higher. Mrs. Chen's voice cuts through everything. Young lady, we all saw what happened. You should be ashamed of yourself. But Veronica is beyond reason now. She's gone too far to back down. She hits the call button, repeatedly, frantically. We have a situation, she announces loudly. Unruly passengers threatening a crew member. And that's when Aiden breaks. Quiet, studious, gentle Aiden, who dreams of being a lawyer like his mom, who just wants to get to New York and make his mother proud, starts crying. Not quiet tears anymore. Real crying. The kind that comes from humiliation and fear and injustice, and not understanding how the world can be this cruel. Amara stands up. She helps her brother to his feet, and when she looks at Veronica, there's something in her eyes that wasn't there before. Something that looks like her mother. We're not doing that, Amara says, her voice steady despite everything. That's insane. Veronica's face goes red. One more word from any of you, she shouts, spinning to address the whole cabin, and you're all off this plane. The threat works on some people. A few passengers who were starting to speak up close their mouths. They have jobs to get to, connections to make. They can't risk being stranded. But Mrs. Chen? She just raises her phone higher. And in first class, the man in the expensive suit stands up. He pulls out his phone, types something quickly, his fingers moving with purpose. His face is still obscured from us, but there's something about the way he moves. The authority in it. The controlled fury. He walks toward the curtain that separates first class from economy. His hand reaches for the fabric, and every step he takes is like a countdown to an explosion. The curtain parts, and everything changes. The man who steps through from first class isn't just tall. He's commanding, 6'3", broad-shouldered, with a presence that fills the space without him having to say a word. He's 45 years old, with a salt and pepper beard that's meticulously groomed, wearing a designer suit that probably costs more than most people's monthly salary. But his tie is loosened. His top button is undone, like he's been trying to relax but couldn't quite manage it. His eyes are what you notice most. They're exhausted, the kind of exhaustion that comes from carrying too much weight for too long, from being both mother and father, from grief that never quite heals. You can see it in the lines around his eyes, the heaviness in his gaze, but underneath that exhaustion, there's something else. Something that looks like steel. He's still wearing his wedding ring. 2 years widowed, and that ring hasn't left his finger. Marcus Thompson surveys the scene in front of him with the kind of calm that comes before a hurricane. His eyes move methodically. The twins on their feet, Aiden's face streaked with tears, Amara's fists still clenched so tight her fingernails are digging into her palms. The flight attendant standing over them with a posture that screams authority and contempt. The passengers with their phones out, their faces showing various degrees of shock and discomfort. He takes it all in, every detail, every nuance, and his expression doesn't change. But his eyes, those exhausted, grief-stricken, steel-lined eyes, go absolutely cold. When he speaks, his voice is quiet, measured, the kind of quiet that makes everyone stop and listen because it carries more weight than any shout ever could. Is there a problem here? Veronica spins around, and you can see the irritation flash across her face before she even sees who's speaking. She's had enough of passengers interfering, enough of people questioning her authority, enough of her power being challenged. "Sir," she says, her voice sharp with annoyance, "return to your seat. This doesn't concern." And then she sees him. Really sees him. Her words die in her throat, because there's something about this man, something in the way he stands, the way he looks at her, that makes her falter. Just for a second, just a flicker of uncertainty crossing her face. But it's enough. Marcus doesn't acknowledge her hesitation. He simply shifts his gaze to his children and says 3 words that change everything. "Aiden, Amara, come here." The twins' faces transform in an instant. Shock ripples across their features. Then relief so profound it's almost painful to watch. Then confusion because Dad said he was flying tomorrow. Dad said he had business. Dad wasn't supposed to be here. But he is here. Amara moves first, already stepping toward her father, and Aiden is right behind her, stumbling slightly because he's shaking so badly. They're moving toward safety, toward protection, toward the one person in the world who will always stand between them and harm, and Veronica steps directly into their path. These passengers are being removed for. She starts, her voice regaining some of its earlier authority, because she still thinks she's in control here, still thinks this is her domain, still thinks she has the power. Marcus cuts her off with 4 words that land like a judge's gavel. "Those are my children." The words hang in the air for a moment. Everyone processes what that means. This isn't just another passenger intervening. This is their father. This is personal. This changes the entire dynamic. Marcus takes a step forward, and there's something in his movement that makes Veronica instinctively step back. "And you're gonna step aside?" Marcus continues, his voice still that same measured calm. "Now." It's not a request. It's not even really a command. It's a statement of fact. This is what's going to happen. The only question is whether Veronica is smart enough to comply. For a moment, it looks like she might back down. Her confidence wavers. You can see the calculation happening behind her eyes, weighing her options, considering the situation. But Veronica Shaw didn't get to where she is by backing down. She built her career on authority, on never letting passengers see weakness, on doubling down when challenged. So that's exactly what she does. She straightens her spine, lifts her chin, and her voice comes out loud enough for the entire section to hear. "I don't care whose children they are. They assaulted me. They destroyed my property. They've been disrespectful and unruly, and they are being removed from this aircraft." The lies hang in the air like poison. And that's when Mrs. Chen, that 60-something woman who's been recording this entire disaster, shouts from her seat, "That's a lie! We all saw it." And suddenly the cabin erupts. "It was an accident," someone yells. "She's been harassing them," another voice adds. "Those kids didn't do anything wrong. She made them get on their knees." The passengers who witnessed everything, who stayed silent out of fear or uncertainty or not wanting to get involved, suddenly find their voices. Because there's power in numbers. Because there's someone standing up first. Because there's a father protecting his children, and that somehow gives everyone else permission to tell the truth. But Veronica is still trying to maintain control, still trying to make her version of events the official one, and she's talking over everyone, saying, "That's not what happened. They're lying. I have authority here." And that's when Marcus pulls out his phone. He doesn't say anything. He just holds it up, turns the screen toward Veronica, and lets her see what's on it. Her face goes white, completely white. All the color drains out of her skin like someone pulled a plug. Her mouth opens slightly, her eyes go wide. And for the first time since this entire nightmare began, Veronica Shaw looks genuinely afraid, because whatever's on that phone, it's devastating. Marcus's voice is still quiet, still calm, but now there's an edge to it, sharp enough to cut. "I've been watching from the first-class camera feed for the last 10 minutes, he says, "and each word is precise, deliberate. Every word you said, every demand you made, every moment of what you just put my children through. I have all of it." He pauses, lets that sink in. "Would you like me to play it back? For everyone? Right now?" The silence that follows is deafening, because everyone understands what this means. This isn't just witnesses who might be biased, who might misremember, who might exaggerate. This is video evidence. This is proof. This is Veronica Shaw's career ending in digital format. Veronica opens her mouth to respond, but no sound comes out. She's trapped, completely and utterly trapped. Every lie she was about to tell, every report she was planning to file, every version of events she was going to craft, all of it is useless now, because there's video. And that's when the cockpit door opens. The pilot emerges, drawn by the commotion, by the raised voices, by the disruption to his flight. Captain Rodriguez is a veteran pilot, probably in his 50s, with the kind of weathered face that comes from decades in the air. He's seen everything, dealt with every kind of passenger issue. Nothing surprises him anymore. Until he sees Marcus Thompson standing in his economy cabin. Rodriguez freezes mid-step. His expression goes from professional concern to absolute shock in the span of a heartbeat. His mouth actually drops open slightly. "Mr. Thompson," he says, and his voice cracks just a bit. I didn't know you were on this flight." And now everyone's confused. Passengers are looking at each other, wondering who this Mr. Thompson is, why the captain knows him, why a pilot is treating a passenger with what looks like deference bordering on fear. Veronica latches onto this like a lifeline. "You know him?" she asks Rodriguez, and there's hope in her voice, like maybe this connection will save her somehow. Rodriguez looks at her, then at Marcus, then back at her, and you can see him trying to figure out how to answer, how much to reveal, what he's allowed to say. "This is Marcus Thompson," Rodriguez finally says carefully. But Marcus interrupts him. "Just a concerned father right now, Captain." His tone is polite but firm, making it clear that his title, whatever it is, isn't the point. Not yet. But we'll get to the rest. The rest. Everyone catches that word. The implication that there's more to know, more that matters, more that's going to come into play. Marcus turns his attention back to the captain, and his voice takes on a different quality. Still calm, but now there's an unmistakable thread of command woven through it. "I need the head of flight services on a call," he says. Not asks. Says now. Rodriguez doesn't hesitate, doesn't question, doesn't ask for clarification. He just nods quickly and says, "Yes, sir, I'll patch them through immediately." And that "sir" tells you everything you need to know about the power dynamics that just shifted. This isn't a pilot being polite to a passenger. This is a subordinate acknowledging a superior. Marcus then turns to Veronica, and his next words are delivered with the kind of cold precision that makes your blood run cold. "You're going to sit down," he says, pointing to a jump seat. "And you're going to be silent until we land. Do you understand?" Veronica's face flushes red. Her authority is crumbling in real time, in front of everyone, and she can feel it slipping away like sand through her fingers. She makes one last desperate attempt to regain control. "I'm filing a report about your children," she says, putting emphasis on the word "your," like that changes anything. "Their behavior was unacceptable, and I have the right." Marcus doesn't raise his voice, doesn't get angry. He just smiles. And it's the most terrifying smile you've ever seen. The kind of smile that promises consequences beyond imagination. "Yes," he says softly, "you are. And I encourage you to put everything you said and did in writing. Please, be thorough. Include every detail, every word, every demand, everything." And the way he says it makes it crystal clear. This is a trap. She's already caught in it. And every word she writes in that report is going to be another nail in her own coffin, because there's video evidence that will contradict every lie, because there are dozens of witnesses who will refute her version, because she just told a man with obvious power that she wants to officially document her own misconduct. Veronica's face goes from red to white to a sickly gray as she realizes what she's done. But Marcus isn't paying attention to her anymore. He's already moved past her, already dismissed her as irrelevant. He walks to his children, and the transformation in his body language is immediate. The steel melts into something softer, something protective, something heartbreaking. Amara crashes into him first, her arms wrapping around his waist, and for the first time since this nightmare began, she lets herself cry. Not loud sobs, but quiet tears of relief and pain, and the release of having to be strong for so long. Marcus's arms come around her immediately, one hand cradling the back of her head. Aiden is right behind her, and Marcus pulls him in too, his other arm encompassing his son. Aiden is shaking so hard you can see it from several rows away, his entire body trembling with the aftershocks of trauma and fear and humiliation. Marcus guides them back to their seats, sits between them, keeps his arms around both of them, and he whispers, so quietly that only they can hear. But we can imagine what he's saying. "I'm so sorry. I should have been here from the start, but I'm here now, and this ends today." Amara pulls back just enough to look at her father, confusion still written across her face. "Dad, how did you?" Her voice breaks. "You said you were flying tomorrow." Marcus's expression softens even more, if that's possible. There's guilt there. Regret. Because he wanted to surprise them. Wanted to see their faces light up when he showed up unexpectedly, but instead he watched them suffer because he wasn't sitting beside them. "Changed my flight last minute," he says, his thumb wiping away tears from her cheek. "Wanted to surprise you." He lets out a bitter laugh. "Some surprise." Aiden still hasn't spoken. He's just clinging to his father like if he lets go, this safety will disappear. His glasses are fogged up from tears. His breath is coming in short, sharp gasps. Marcus recognizes the signs of a panic attack starting to build and tightens his hold. "Breathe with me, son," Marcus says quietly. "In for 4, hold for 4, out for 4, just like Mom taught you." And that reference to their mother, to the woman who taught them how to survive difficult moments, who gave them tools for when the world was cruel, it helps. Aiden starts to match his breathing to his father's. Slowly, gradually, the shaking begins to subside. Meanwhile, Veronica is having a complete meltdown of a different kind. She's frantically looking around for support, for someone to back her up, for anyone who will tell her that she's right and everyone else is wrong. She spots other flight attendants and makes her way toward them, her voice urgent and desperate. "You have to back me up. Those passengers were completely out of control. They were aggressive. They threatened me." But the other crew members are looking at her like she's grown a second head. James, that younger flight attendant who tried to intervene earlier, pulls her aside. His voice is low, urgent, tinged with disbelief at what he's about to tell her. "Veronica, stop. You need to stop talking right now." "What are you?" "You don't know who that is," James interrupts, his eyes wide. "That man, the father." Veronica waves a dismissive hand. "I don't care if he's the president. This is my domain. I have authority on this aircraft, and—" "He's on the board of directors," James says, and his voice has dropped to barely above a whisper. "Of the airline. Of this airline." Veronica freezes. Actually freezes mid-gesture, her hand still raised, her mouth still open. James continues, and now he looks almost sick. "Actually, I think he might be more than that. The way the captain reacted, Veronica, I think that might be the CEO." The words land like a physical blow. Veronica actually staggers back a step. Her face goes through a rapid succession of expressions. Disbelief, denial, horror, panic, and finally dawning realization of just how catastrophically she's destroyed her life in the span of 20 minutes. "No," she whispers. "No, that's not. He can't be." But even as she's denying it, she can see the truth in James's face, in the way the captain is handling the situation, in the way that man commanded everyone's attention without raising his voice, in the way he asked for the head of flight services like he had the right to make that demand. Veronica looks across the cabin at Marcus, who's still sitting between his children, comforting them, being a father first. And for just a moment, you can see her trying to calculate if there's any way out of this, any possible escape route, any story she can tell that might save her. But there isn't. There's video, there are witnesses, and she doesn't just have an angry passenger to deal with. She has the man who controls her entire career trajectory, the man who can end her employment with a word, the man whose children she just tried to humiliate. Back in the seats, Marcus is gently checking on his children, asking if they're hurt, making sure they're okay. And then he does something that makes several passengers start crying. He takes off his suit jacket and drapes it around Amara's shoulders, because she's shivering. He pulls out a handkerchief, the old-fashioned kind, and carefully cleans Aiden's glasses while his son tries to stop crying. He pulls a bottle of water from his carry-on and makes sure both twins drink, because they're dehydrated from stress. He's being a dad, just a dad, taking care of his kids. And then he looks up at the passengers around them, at Mrs. Chen, who's still holding her phone, at Mr. Harrison, the businessman who now looks ashamed that he initially judged the twins, at the young mother, at all the witnesses who watched his children suffer. "Excuse me," Marcus says, his voice carrying just far enough. "I know this has been distressing for everyone, and I'm grateful that several of you tried to intervene." He pauses, making eye contact with Mrs. Chen specifically. "Would any of you be willing to give statements about what you witnessed here today? I want to make sure that what happened to my children never happens to anyone else." And here's what happens next. Every single hand in the surrounding rows goes up. Not some of them. Not most of them. All of them. Mrs. Chen speaks up first. "Young man, I have the whole thing recorded, every word, every terrible moment, and I'll testify in court if I have to." Mr. Harrison stands up, looking uncomfortable but determined. "I'll give a statement. I was wrong at first. I thought the kids were being disrespectful, but that woman," he shakes his head, "that was abuse, plain and simple." The young mother with the toddler raises her hand. I'll testify. My daughter shouldn't have to see people treated that way. Nobody should. One by one, passengers volunteer, give their names, offer their contact information, promise to help in whatever way they can. Marcus nods, and there's emotion in his eyes now, because this is humanity. This is people standing up when it matters. This is a community saying, not on our watch. Thank you, he says, and his voice is thick. This isn't just about my children anymore. It's about how many others she's done this to. How many people suffered in silence because they didn't have witnesses, because they didn't have power, because they thought no one would believe them. He looks directly at Veronica, who's still standing frozen in the aisle, her world crumbling around her. That ends today, Marcus says, and it's a promise, a vow, a declaration of war against every system that let this happen. The captain returns from the cockpit. Mr. Thompson, I have the head of flight services on the line, and he hesitates. The full executive team is being notified. Marcus stands, keeping one hand on Amara's shoulder, maintaining that physical connection. Thank you, Captain. I'll take the call here. I want everyone to hear this. Because that's the thing about Marcus Thompson. He's not hiding. He's not taking this to a back room or handling it quietly. He wants transparency. He wants accountability. He wants everyone on this plane to see that justice doesn't get swept under the rug when you have power. It gets served publicly, completely, and without mercy. The captain hands Marcus the phone, and Marcus puts it on speaker. This is Marcus Thompson, he says into the phone. Passenger on flight 2847. I need Andrea, Moss from HR, and the full executive team on this call in the next 60 seconds. There's frantic movement on the other end of the line. Voices overlapping. Mr. Thompson, yes, sir. We'll get them immediately. Is everything all right, sir? 60 seconds, Marcus repeats calmly, and then waits. The cabin is absolutely silent. Everyone is holding their breath, waiting to see what happens next, waiting for the hammer to fall, waiting for justice. And Veronica Shaw, 15-year veteran flight attendant, woman who thought her power was absolute, stands in the aisle and watches her entire life unravel in real time. Because she didn't just cross a line today. She crossed the wrong line, with the wrong family, at the wrong time. The countdown has begun, and there's no stopping what comes next. The phone line crackles to life, and you can hear the chaos on the other end. Multiple voices talking over each other, footsteps running, doors opening and closing. Someone is clearly sprinting through a corporate office, because you can hear their breathing getting faster, more urgent. Mr. Thompson, sir. We're getting everyone now, a woman's voice says, trembling slightly. The executive team is being pulled from meetings. We have Andrea Moss from HR on her way to the conference room. We just need another 30 seconds. 60 seconds, Marcus repeats, looking at his watch. His voice is still that same calm, measured tone. But everyone in that cabin can hear what's underneath it. The barely controlled fury. The promise of consequences. I'm counting. And he is. Everyone can see him watching the seconds tick by on his watch while the entire cabin holds its breath. Veronica is still standing in the aisle, and you can see the exact moment reality crashes over her like a tidal wave. Her face goes through this rapid transformation. Confusion melting into understanding, understanding crystallizing into horror, horror blooming into full-blown panic. Her hands start shaking, not a little tremor, full shaking, like she's suddenly freezing cold in the climate-controlled cabin. She takes a step toward Marcus, her voice coming out in a rush. Mr. Thompson, I didn't realize. I'm so sorry. I didn't know they were your... Marcus holds up one hand, doesn't look at her, doesn't acknowledge her beyond that single gesture, and his voice when it comes is colder than ice. Don't. One word. That's all he gives her. Then he continues, still not looking at her, his eyes fixed on his watch. You had your chance to be human. You had multiple chances, actually, when you first saw the spill, when my daughter apologized, when another crew member tried to intervene, when passengers spoke up, when my children were on their knees begging you to stop. He finally looks at her, and his eyes are empty of any warmth whatsoever. You chose otherwise. Every single time you chose cruelty. So no, I'm not interested in your apology now. Now that you know who I am, now that you're afraid, your apology isn't for my children, it's for yourself. Veronica's mouth opens and closes, but no sound comes out. What do you say to that? What can you say? The phone crackles again. Mr. Thompson, we have everyone assembled. I'm patching you through to the executive conference room now. Thank you, Marcus says, and his tone shifts slightly, more professional. But the steel is still there, running through every syllable. A new voice comes through the speaker, older, authoritative, but there's unmistakable deference in it. Mr. Thompson, this is Richard Sterling, COO. We have Andrea Moss from HR, Jennifer Park from Legal, David Chen from Operations, and Sarah Williams is here as well. That last name gets a reaction. Several passengers who have been listening closely exchange glances. Sarah Williams. Even people who don't follow business news have heard that name. She's the current acting CEO while Marcus is supposedly on sabbatical, dealing with family matters after his wife's death. Except he's not on sabbatical. He's here, on this plane, and he's about to blow up someone's world. Sarah, Marcus says, and there's something in his tone. Not quite cold, but not warm either. I apologize for the interruption, but we have a situation that requires immediate executive attention. Sarah Williams's voice comes through and she sounds genuinely concerned. Marcus, are you all right? Are Aiden and Amara with you? They're here, Marcus says, his hand tightening slightly on Amara's shoulder. And no, Sarah, we're not all right, but we will be. He takes a breath, and when he speaks again, his voice is perfectly controlled. Professional, the voice of a CEO delivering a report. Except this report is about his own children being abused. 23 minutes ago, during beverage service on Flight 2847 from Atlanta to New York, a minor turbulence bump caused my daughter's apple juice to spill, approximately 1 tablespoon of liquid. 3 drops made contact with flight attendant Veronica Shaw's shoe. My children immediately apologized and attempted to clean the spill. His voice never wavers, never cracks, but you can hear the effort it's taking. Miss Shaw responded with a disproportionate level of aggression. She berated my children, using terms like careless, entitled, and disrespectful. She made assumptions about their home life and implied their parents were absent. She forced them to their knees in the aisle with inadequate cleaning supplies while she hovered over them, making derogatory comments loud enough for the entire cabin to hear. There's dead silence on the other end of the line. You can hear someone's sharp intake of breath. Marcus continues. And then, while my 16-year-old children were on their knees in front of a plane full of witnesses, Miss Shaw ordered them to lick her shoes clean. When they refused, she threatened to have them removed from the aircraft and permanently banned from the airline. The gasps through the speaker are audible now. Someone says, "Oh my God," in the background. Another voice says, "Jesus Christ." I have video documentation of the incident, Marcus adds, his voice taking on an edge. I've been in first class for the duration of the flight and accessed the cabin camera feed approximately 10 minutes into the incident. Would you like me to send it now, or would you prefer to wait until we land? Send it now, Andrea Moss says immediately, her voice tight with barely controlled fury. Right now, Mr. Thompson. Marcus taps his phone a few times, and you can hear the notification sounds on the other end as the video arrives in multiple inboxes simultaneously. And then silence. Absolute, terrible silence as the executive team watches what happened to Marcus Thompson's children. You can't hear the audio from their end, but you can imagine what they're seeing. Aiden and Amara on their knees, Veronica standing over them, the humiliation, the abuse. The moment she ordered children to lick her shoes. When the gasps come through the speaker, they're louder this time, more visceral. Someone is crying. You can hear it, muffled but unmistakable. Mr. Thompson, Andrea Moss finally says, and her voice is shaking. We are horrified, absolutely horrified. This is being handled effective immediately. That employee will be... Not immediately, Marcus interrupts, and his tone has shifted again. This is the voice of a CEO who's not asking for something. He's telling you what's going to happen. When we land. I want Captain Rodriguez to witness the full investigation. I want every passenger who saw this incident interviewed before they leave the aircraft. I want her complete personnel file on my desk, including every complaint ever filed against her, every disciplinary action, every manager who signed off on keeping her employed despite those complaints. Yes, sir, Andrea says immediately. Absolutely. I want to know, Marcus continues, his voice getting harder, How many other passengers have been treated this way? How many other families have been targeted? How many complaints were dismissed or buried because it was easier than dealing with a problem employee? There's shuffling on the other end, papers moving, someone typing frantically. Then another voice comes through, and it's shaking so badly the words almost don't come out clearly. Mr. Thompson, this is CEO Williams. I cannot express how deeply sorry I am. What happened to your children is unconscionable. We will handle this personally. Whatever you need, whatever they need, we will make this right. And there's something about hearing the CEO apologize that makes it click for everyone in the cabin. Mrs. Chen's eyes go wide. Mr. Harrison's mouth falls open. Even James, the flight attendant, takes a step back and has to steady himself against a seat. Because if Sarah Williams is calling Marcus Mr. Thompson with that level of deference, if she's apologizing like her job depends on it, if the entire executive team is treating him like, wait, the pieces start falling into place, the way the captain reacted, the way Marcus commanded that conference call, the way he said when we land like he had the authority to dictate airline policy, the way Sarah Williams just apologized to him like, oh no. Veronica realizes it the same moment everyone else does. You can literally see her knees buckle. She has to grab onto a seat to stay upright. Her face has gone beyond white into a sickly gray color. She's making these small sounds in the back of her throat, like she's trying to speak but can't form words. Because Marcus Thompson isn't on the board of directors. He's not just some executive. He's the executive, the CEO, the man at the very top, the person who every single employee at this airline ultimately answers to. And she just tortured his children for 23 minutes in front of witnesses and cameras. Veronica starts shaking her head, backing away, and words finally tumble out in a desperate rush. No, you don't understand. They were aggressive. I felt threatened. They were hostile toward me. I was just protecting myself and the other passengers. But the passengers around her erupt. That's a lie, Harrison shouts, standing up from his seat. Those kids were nothing but polite. You're the one who was aggressive, the young mother adds, her voice sharp with anger. Mrs. Chen, still holding her phone with the recording, speaks up with a voice that could cut steel. The only aggressive person here is you, sweetheart, and we have proof. Other voices join in. Those children didn't do anything wrong. You terrorized them. We all saw what you did. Veronica spins around, looking for support, looking for someone, anyone who will back her up. Her eyes land on the other flight attendants, on James, who she's worked with for years, on the others who've seen her in action before, and every single one of them looks away. James actively steps back, shaking his head. The other crew members suddenly find something very interesting to look at on the ceiling, out the windows, anywhere but at Veronica. Because they know. They've always known what she's like. They've heard the complaints. They've seen the behavior. And not one of them is going to go down with her. Veronica is completely alone, abandoned by colleagues, contradicted by witnesses, exposed by video evidence, standing in the wreckage of her own making. On the phone, Sarah Williams is speaking again. Mr. Thompson, we're dispatching an HR team and security to meet the flight immediately upon landing. We'll conduct interviews on the aircraft before any passengers disembark. Every witness will be documented. Ms. Shaw will be placed on immediate suspension pending a full investigation, but I think we all know how this is going to end. I appreciate that, Sarah, Marcus says. Then his voice shifts slightly, becomes more personal. But I want to be clear about something. This isn't just about my children. This is about every passenger who's been treated this way and didn't have the power or platform to fight back. This is about systemic problems in how complaints are handled, how certain employees are protected despite documented issues, how corporate culture can enable abuse. He pauses, lets that sink in. My children will recover from this. They have support, resources, love, but somewhere out there is a passenger who went through something similar and had nobody believe them, who filed a complaint that got lost in bureaucracy, who decided flying wasn't worth the humiliation. Those are the people I'm thinking about right now. The silence on the other end of the line is profound, because Marcus Thompson just elevated this from a personal grievance to a corporate reckoning. He's not just going after one employee, he's going after the system that created and protected her. "We understand," Sarah says quietly, "and we will do better. I give you my word." "I'm going to hold you to that," Marcus responds. "We'll discuss the details when we land. Thompson out." He ends the call and hands the phone back to Captain Rodriguez, who takes it with a hand that's not quite steady. The captain clears his throat. "Mr. Thompson, we'll begin our descent into New York in approximately 15 minutes. I'll make sure everyone remains seated after landing as requested." "Thank you, Captain." Rodriguez nods and returns to the cockpit, leaving behind a cabin full of passengers who are processing what they just heard, what they just witnessed. The fact that they're part of something that's going to change an entire airline's policies. Veronica is still standing in the aisle, tears now streaming down her face. Not tears of remorse, tears of self-pity. Tears because she got caught, because she's facing consequences, because her career is over and she knows it. She tries one more time, her voice breaking. "Please, Mr. Thompson, I have a family, I have bills, I've worked here for 15 years. Marcus looks at her and his expression doesn't change. "And in those 15 years, how many people did you treat like this? How many passengers did you humiliate? How many complaints were filed against you that your managers ignored because you had seniority?" Veronica can't answer. Because she knows. She knows there were others. She knows her behavior wasn't an isolated incident. She knows that what made today different was that she picked the wrong targets. "You're asking me to care about your family," Marcus says quietly, "while my children are sitting here traumatized from what you put them through. Do you see the problem with that?" He turns away from her, back to Aiden and Amara, dismissing her as thoroughly as she tried to dismiss his children. And that dismissal, that complete erasure of her relevance, is somehow more devastating than any shouting match could have been. The plane begins its descent. The cabin crew, minus Veronica, begins preparing for landing. The seatbelt sign comes on, and everyone sits in their seats, processing what just happened, waiting to see what comes next. Aiden is quiet, his head resting on his father's shoulder. Amara is staring out the window, touching her mother's locket, probably thinking about how their mom would have handled this. Would she be proud? Would she be furious? Would she have burned the whole airline down with her words? Marcus is just holding them, being present, being their father, because that's what matters most right now. The wheels touch down in New York, the plane taxis to the gate, and Captain Rodriguez's voice comes over the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, we've arrived in New York. However, I'm going to ask everyone to remain seated with your seatbelts fastened. We have some administrative matters to attend to before anyone can deplane. We appreciate your patience and cooperation." The passengers stay seated. Nobody complains, because everyone understands this is important. This matters. Justice is being served, and they all want to be part of making sure it happens right. The plane comes to a complete stop at the gate. The seatbelt sign stays on, and then, through the windows, passengers can see them approaching. A team of people in business attire, security officers, HR representatives, all moving with purpose toward the aircraft. The forward door opens, and they board immediately. The lead is a woman in her 50s, South Asian, wearing a sharp suit and an expression of barely controlled fury. She makes eye contact with Marcus and gives him a small nod of acknowledgement and respect. Then she turns to Veronica Shaw. "Miss Shaw, I'm Andrea Moss, Director of Human Resources. You're being placed on immediate administrative leave, pending a full investigation into your conduct on this flight. You'll need to come with security now." Veronica tries one last time to protest. "This is unfair. I was just doing my job. I have rights." "You do have rights," Andrea says calmly, "and we'll respect every one of them during this investigation. But right now, you need to leave this aircraft." Two security officers move to flank Veronica. She looks around one more time, desperate for someone to intervene, someone to save her. But there's nothing. Nobody. The other flight attendants won't look at her. The passengers are watching with expressions ranging from satisfaction to pity. Marcus Thompson has already turned away. As they escort her toward the exit, she passes by the twins one last time, and she has the audacity, the absolute audacity, to say to Marcus, "You're going to ruin my career over an accident?" Marcus stands up, slowly, deliberately, And when he responds, his voice is so cold it could freeze nitrogen. "No," he says, each word precisely enunciated. "You did that yourself. I'm just making sure you never do it to anyone else's children." And that's the last thing Veronica Shaw hears as she's escorted off the plane, crying, protesting, her designer shoes clicking on the jetway floor for the last time as an employee of Skybridge Airlines. The HR team spreads out through the cabin, and the interviews begin. Each passenger who witnessed the incident is asked to give a statement. They're professional, thorough, taking detailed notes on tablets, recording everything. Mrs. Chen is one of the first. She not only gives her statement, she pulls up the video on her phone and makes sure they have a copy. "I want this in your records," she says firmly. "I want proof, because I've seen too many complaints disappear into nothing." Mr. Harrison gives his statement, and there's shame in his voice when he admits, "At first, when I saw the spill, I thought the kids were at fault. I made assumptions. I was wrong. That woman wasn't correcting disrespectful behavior. She was on a power trip from the very start. She wanted to hurt those children, and she did." The young mother with the toddler speaks up. "My daughter shouldn't have to see people being treated that way. Nobody should. What that woman did was abuse, plain and simple." One by one, the passengers give their accounts, and they all say the same things. The twins were polite. The spill was an accident. Veronica's response was disproportionate and cruel. The harassment was unprovoked. The demand to lick her shoes was unconscionable. Then James, the flight attendant, gives his statement, and what he says changes everything. "This isn't the first time," he tells Andrea Moss, his voice quiet but firm. "Veronica has complaints in her file, multiple complaints, from passengers, from crew members, from gate agents. They kept getting buried, dismissed as difficult passengers or personality conflicts or isolated incidents. But they weren't isolated. This is who she is. This is what she does. And management kept protecting her because she has seniority, because she knows how to write reports that make her look good, because nobody wanted to deal with the union fight." Andrea's jaw tightens. She makes a note on her tablet, and you can see her writing in all caps, "Review all previous complaints. Investigate management response." While this is happening, Aiden and Amara are sitting quietly, still processing everything. They haven't been interviewed yet. The HR team is deliberately leaving them for last, giving them time, not wanting to traumatize them further. A young woman, maybe mid-20s, approaches their row nervously. "Excuse me," she says softly. "I'm so sorry for what happened to you. I recorded the whole thing on my phone. If you need it for anything, for any reason, I have it. Clear audio, clear video. I'll send it to you or your lawyer or whoever you need me to." Amara looks up at her, and there are tears in her eyes. "Thank you," she whispers. "Thank you for seeing us, for not looking away." The woman nods, her own eyes getting wet. "My little brother is your age. If someone treated him like that," she shakes her head, "I couldn't stay silent." Other passengers approach with similar offers, contact information, witness statements, videos, support. The twins are overwhelmed by the kindness, by the solidarity, by the proof that not everyone is like Veronica Shaw. Amara turns to Aiden, who's been silent for a while now. She takes his hand and says something that their mother used to tell them. "Mom would have been proud of how you held it together." Aiden shakes his head, his voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't. I cried." Amara squeezes his hand. "Being strong doesn't mean not crying, Aiden. It means not breaking, and you didn't break. Neither of us did. We held on to who we are, who Mom raised us to be. That's what matters." Marcus overhears this and has to look away for a moment, his own eyes filling with tears, because his wife would have said exactly that, because his children are carrying her wisdom forward, because even in trauma, they're finding strength. Finally, the plane starts to empty. Passengers begin disembarking, many of them stopping to offer words of support to the twins, to shake Marcus's hand, to say thank you for standing up, or I hope they're okay, or that woman got what she deserved. When the cabin is finally clear, when the last passenger has exited, Andrea Moss approaches Marcus's row. She crouches down so she's at eye level with the twins. "Aiden, Amara," she says gently, "I know you've been through something horrible today, and I know the last thing you want to do is relive it, but I need to get your statements, your truth, your words. Can you do that for me?" Both twins nod, and with their father's hand on their shoulders, they tell their story. Everything. The spill, the overreaction, the humiliation, the words that cut deeper than any physical pain. The moment Veronica told them to lick her shoes, the fear, the confusion, the feeling of being powerless. Andrea listens to every word, takes notes, asks clarifying questions, treats them with respect and dignity. Everything Veronica Shaw didn't do. When they finish, she closes her tablet and looks at them seriously. Thank you both for your courage. What happened to you was wrong. It was abusive. And it will never happen again on any flight operated by this airline. You have my word. Then she stands and turns to Marcus. Mr. Thompson, there's someone waiting to speak with you at the gate. Marcus nods, helps his children gather their belongings, and they walk off the plane together, down the jetway, into the terminal. And there, standing by the gate, is an older woman in an immaculate pantsuit, gray hair pulled back in a professional bun, sharp eyes that have seen decades of corporate battles. Sarah Williams, the acting CEO. Mr. Thompson, she says, and then she does something unexpected. She looks at the twins. Aiden, Amara, I cannot apologize enough for what happened to you on our aircraft today. Amara, exhausted and emotionally drained, finally asks the question that's been building. Dad, what exactly is your job? Marcus looks at his daughter, and for the first time since this nightmare began, he smiles. Just a little. Just enough. I'm the CEO of Skybridge Airlines, he says simply. This airline. Both twins' mouths fall open. They knew he worked in airlines. They knew he had an important job. But this? What? Aiden stammers. Marcus's smile gets a little wider, a little sadder. I started as a baggage handler 25 years ago. Worked every job in this company. Ticket agent, gate agent, flight attendant, operations, management. Your mom was so proud when I made VP. And then his voice catches slightly. 2 years ago, I became CEO because I promised your mother I'd make this industry better, that I'd create a place where people, all people, are treated with dignity. He looks at Sarah Williams and his expression hardens again. Today showed me how far we still have to go. Sarah nods gravely. Marcus, I know you're on family leave, but when you're ready, we need to have serious conversations about policy changes. Not when I'm ready, Marcus corrects her. Now, today, this doesn't wait. He turns to Andrea Moss, who's been standing nearby. I want every complaint filed against Veronica Shaw for the last 5 years. Actually, no, last 10 years. Pull them all. Then I want every complaint filed against any employee that was dismissed or minimized. I want patterns. I want names. I want to know which managers protected problem employees. I want to know why nobody did anything when passengers were being abused. Andrea's eyes widen. Sir, that could be hundreds of complaints. Then you'd better get started. Marcus says, his voice leaving no room for argument. Today proved something to me. We don't have a personnel problem. We have a culture problem, a systemic problem, and systems can be changed. He looks around at the airport, at the Skybridge Airlines gates, at the employees in uniform going about their jobs. If Veronica Shaw felt comfortable treating my children that way, in front of witnesses with cameras recording, that means she felt protected. That means the system enabled her. That ends now. Sarah Williams nods slowly. You're right, and we'll fix it. All of it. Yes, Marcus agrees. We will. He turns back to his children, his expression softening immediately. Come on, let's get you to your hotel. You have a youth leadership summit to prepare for. Amara looks at him incredulously. Dad, after everything that happened, you still think we should go to the summit? Marcus puts his arms around both of them, especially after everything that happened. You know why? Because that's what your mother would say. Don't let small people make you feel small. Don't let cruelty silence you. Stand up, speak out, change the world. And maybe it's exhaustion or relief or the realization that they're safe now, but Aiden starts laughing. Really laughing. And then Amara joins in, and Marcus does too. The three of them standing in an airport terminal laughing together, choosing joy despite the trauma, choosing to move forward despite the pain, because that's what family does. That's what strength looks like. That's what justice feels like when it's finally served. 3 days later, in a conference room at Skybridge Airlines headquarters, Veronica Shaw sits across from a panel of executives, HR representatives, and legal counsel. Her lawyer is beside her, a folder full of protests and counter-arguments ready to deploy. She's prepared her defense, She's rehearsed her version of events. She's convinced herself that somehow, some way, she can salvage this. The video plays on the screen behind her. All 23 minutes of it. Crystal clear. High definition. Every word she said, every gesture she made, every moment of cruelty captured in undeniable detail. When it ends, Andrea Moss doesn't even pause. She slides a document across the table. Miss Shaw, you are hereby terminated from Skybridge Airlines effective immediately for passenger abuse, discrimination, creating a hostile environment, and violations of our code of conduct that are too numerous to list in this meeting. Veronica's lawyer starts to object. Now wait just a minute. My client has rights. She's worked here for 15 years. You can't just... We can, Andrea interrupts calmly. And we are. The evidence is incontrovertible. The witnesses are unanimous. The video speaks for itself. Miss Shaw's employment is terminated. Security will escort her from the building. And that's it. 15 years of seniority gone. Her career over. Her reputation destroyed. Veronica tries to protest, tries to argue, tries to claim this is unfair, but her words fall on deaf ears because everyone in that room has seen what she did. Everyone knows there's no coming back from this. Security escorts her out of the building for the last time. She's crying again, but nobody's sympathetic. The other employees she passes in the hallways, people she's worked with for years, they all turn away because they've heard the stories. They know what she was really like, and not one of them is sad to see her go. But something else happens in that same building, in that same week, that tells a different story. James, the young flight attendant who tried to intervene, who whispered, "This isn't right," but didn't have the power to stop it, gets called into a meeting. He's terrified. He thinks maybe he's being punished for not doing more, for not standing up stronger, for being complicit through his silence. But when he enters the conference room, Marcus Thompson is there, and Marcus extends his hand. Marcus says, "I've reviewed your statement. I've seen your employment record. I know you tried to intervene when Veronica was abusing my children. I know you spoke up during the investigation, and I know you filed 3 separate complaints about her behavior in the past 2 years that were dismissed by your supervisors." James nods, not trusting himself to speak. Marcus continues, "You spoke up, even when it cost you, even when you knew it might hurt your career. That matters. That matters more than you know." He gestures to the seat across from him. "How would you feel about leading our new crew retraining program, specifically focusing on bias recognition, de-escalation, and creating a culture where speaking up is encouraged, not punished?" James's mouth falls open. Sir, I'm just a flight attendant. I don't have management experience." "You have something more valuable," Marcus interrupts. "You have integrity, and you understand what it's like to see wrong happening and feel powerless to stop it. That perspective is exactly what we need to make sure this never happens again." James accepts, right there, on the spot, and within a week, he's leading sessions with flight crews across the company, teaching them not just what Veronica did wrong, but how to recognize the early warning signs of abuse, how to intervene, how to protect passengers, how to be brave when it's easier to stay silent. But Marcus doesn't stop there. Every single passenger on Flight 2847 receives a letter of apology. Not a form letter. A personal, detailed acknowledgement of what they witnessed, what they endured, how traumatic it was to see children being abused and feel helpless to stop it effectively. Along with the letter comes a full refund of their ticket price and a voucher for a free round-trip flight anywhere Skybridge flies. Mrs. Chen gets her letter and immediately calls the customer service line. "I don't want the money," she says firmly. "I want you to donate my refund and voucher value to a civil rights organization. I don't need compensation for doing the right thing." The representative is stunned. "Ma'am, are you sure? That's over $800. I'm sure. Donate it. Use it for something that matters. And here's the thing about kindness. It's contagious." Within 48 hours, 17 other passengers from that flight have called in with the same request. "Donate mine. I don't need the money. Give it to someone fighting for justice." Use it to make real change. By the end of the week, over $40,000 has been donated to civil rights organizations, youth advocacy groups, and programs fighting discrimination in the travel industry. $40,000 from passengers who witnessed injustice and decided that compensation wasn't enough. They wanted action. They wanted change, and they get it. 2 weeks after the incident, Marcus calls a company-wide meeting. Every employee, from baggage handlers to executives, is required to attend either in person or via video conference. Thousands of faces on screens, filling auditoriums, watching from break rooms. Marcus stands at the podium, his children beside him, because he wants every employee to see who Aiden and Amara are. Not abstract victims, real teenagers who love their mom, who are nervous but brave, who represent every passenger that ever trusted Skybridge to treat them with dignity. 3 weeks ago, Marcus begins, his voice carrying through the silent rooms. My children were abused on one of our flights. You've all heard about it. You've seen the video. You know what happened. But what you might not know is that this wasn't an isolated incident. Veronica Shaw had complaints in her file dating back 7 years. 7 years of passengers reporting her behavior. 7 years of supervisors dismissing those complaints as personality conflicts or difficult passengers. He pauses, lets that sink in. That ends today. Effective immediately, Skybridge Airlines is implementing mandatory bias, recognition, and de-escalation training for every employee. Not just flight attendants, everyone, because discrimination can happen at any touch point, and we all have a responsibility to stop it. The employees listen, some nodding, some looking uncomfortable, all paying attention. We're also implementing a zero-tolerance policy for discrimination of any kind, Marcus continues. Race, gender, religion, disability, age, sexual orientation, it doesn't matter. If you abuse a passenger, if you create a hostile environment, if you treat anyone with less dignity than they deserve, you will be terminated. No warnings, no second chances, zero tolerance. Some employees shift in their seats. The ones who've been getting away with behavior they knew was wrong, the ones who thought seniority or relationships with managers would protect them, they're realizing those days are over. And finally, Marcus says, we're creating an anonymous reporting system for both passengers and staff. If you witness discrimination, if you experience it, if you see something that violates our values, you can report it without fear of retaliation. Every report will be investigated, every pattern will be tracked, and we will review these reports quarterly to identify problems before they become crises. He looks around the room, making eye contact with as many people as possible. My children deserved better than what happened to them. And so does every person who steps onto our aircraft, who trusts us to get them safely to their destination, who believes that 30,000 feet in the air, they'll be treated like human beings. We're going to earn that trust back, starting now. The meeting ends, and the policies go into effect immediately. Within a month, 23 employees across the company have been terminated for discrimination. Some are shocked, some protest, but the message is clear. This is not a publicity stunt. This is real change. This is accountability. Later that same day, after the company meeting, after the press conferences, after all the official business is handled, Marcus takes his children to a quiet corner of the airport. A little garden area that most travelers rush past, too focused on catching flights to notice the peaceful space. They sit on a bench together, and Aiden finally asks the question that's been eating at him. Why didn't you tell us what you do? That you were the CEO? Marcus is quiet for a moment, choosing his words carefully. Because I wanted you to grow up normal, he finally says. Not as the CEO's kids. Not with people treating you differently because of who your father is. Not with the pressure and expectations and weirdness that comes with having a parent in a position like mine. He looks at both of them, and there's so much love in his eyes it's almost painful to witness. But today showed me something. You already are who I hoped you'd be. Strong, dignified, brave in the face of cruelty. You held on to who you are even when someone tried to strip that away from you. You're your mother's children. And that's worth more than any title I could ever have. Amara leans against her father's shoulder. What happens now? Marcus wraps his arm around her. You go to your summit. You change the world like you've been preparing to do. And I make sure what happened to you never happens to anyone else's children. We both do our part. There's silence for a moment, the kind of comfortable silence that only exists between people who truly know and trust each other. And then Aiden sits up straighter. And there's something in his posture that reminds you of his mother. That steel spine, that quiet determination. "I want to talk about this," he says. At the summit, about what happened on that flight, Marcus turns to look at his son. "Aiden, you don't have to." "I know I don't have to," Aiden interrupts gently, "but I want to. Mom always said silence protects abusers. That's what she told us. That injustice thrives in darkness, and the only way to fight it is to turn on the lights." Amara nods, sitting up too. "They tried to break us, Dad. Veronica Shaw tried to humiliate us so badly that we'd never speak up again, never cause problems, never challenge authority. But we didn't break. And other people need to know they don't have to break either." Marcus looks at his children, these incredible young people who've been through trauma and come out stronger, and his eyes fill with tears. "Are you sure?" he asks. "Once you tell your story publicly, you can't take it back. People will know. They'll have opinions. Some will support you, some will criticize you, some will say horrible things because that's what people do on the internet. It won't be easy." Aiden and Amara look at each other, having one of those silent twin conversations that only they can understand. And then they both nod. "We're sure," Amara says. "We're not staying silent." And they don't. 3 days later, at the National Youth Leadership Summit in New York, Aiden Thompson stands at a podium in front of 500 of the brightest young people in the country. His hands are shaking slightly as he grips the microphone, but his voice is clear and strong. "My name is Aiden Thompson," he begins, "and 2 weeks ago a flight attendant ordered me and my sister to lick her shoes clean because we accidentally spilled some juice during turbulence." The room goes completely silent. You could hear a pin drop, and then Aiden tells the story. All of it. The spill, the overreaction, the humiliation, the moment he thought his dignity was going to be stripped away forever, the fear, the helplessness, and then his father's intervention, the justice, the change. "I'm telling you this," Aiden says, his voice stronger now, "because my mother taught me that silence protects abusers, that injustice thrives in darkness, and I refuse to let what happened to us stay in the dark." He pauses, looks out at the sea of young faces watching him. "Some of you have experienced discrimination. Maybe not exactly like this, but you know what it feels like to be treated as less than human because of your skin color, or your accent, or your religion, or who you love, or how much money your family has. You know what it feels like when someone with power decides you don't matter." Heads nod throughout the audience, because yes, they know. They all know. And I'm here to tell you, you do matter. Your dignity is not negotiable. Your humanity is not up for debate. And when someone tries to take that away from you, you fight back. Not with violence, not with cruelty, but with truth, with witnesses, with accountability, with the absolute refusal to accept that this is just how things are. The applause starts slowly, then builds into a standing ovation. Tears are streaming down faces throughout the auditorium, because Aiden just gave voice to something so many of them have felt but couldn't articulate. Someone records the speech, posts it online, and it goes viral. Not in a day, not in a week, but steadily, relentlessly, the video spreads across social media. 10,000 views becomes 100,000, becomes 1 million, becomes 10 million. News outlets pick it up. Other passengers from Flight 2847 share their recordings. Mrs. Chen's video surfaces. The full story comes out, and within 6 months, that video has been viewed over 50 million times. 50 million people watching a 16-year-old boy talk about discrimination, dignity, and the refusal to stay silent. 50 million people hearing about what happened on Flight 2847. 50 million people demanding better from the airline industry. And the industry responds. 3 major airlines, Skybridge's biggest competitors, announced they're adopting similar policies. Mandatory bias training, zero tolerance for discrimination, anonymous reporting systems. Because they've seen what happens when you don't. They've seen the public backlash. They've seen passengers choosing other airlines. They've seen the cost of protecting abusive employees. Change is happening. Real, measurable, documented change. But what about Veronica Shaw? What happened to the woman who started all of this? She tries to sue for wrongful termination, claims she was discriminated against, that the video was taken out of context, that she was the real victim. Her lawyer files motions, argues that her seniority should protect her. That one incident shouldn't destroy a 15-year career. The case is dismissed, not even a settlement. Dismissed because there's video evidence, because there are dozens of witnesses, because her previous complaints are now part of the public record, because no jury in the world would rule in her favor after seeing what she did. And then the legal troubles get worse, because several previous passengers who filed complaints against her come forward with their own lawsuits. Harassment, emotional distress, discrimination. The cases pile up, her lawyer fees mount, her savings evaporate, and Veronica Shaw learns what it's like to face consequences for years of unchecked cruelty. But the story isn't really about her anymore. It's about the people who stood up. James, the flight attendant who spoke up, is now the head of diversity and inclusion for Skybridge Airlines. He travels the country training crews, sharing his story, teaching people that speaking up isn't just right, it's necessary. That silence makes you complicit, that you have more power than you think. Mrs. Chen, that 60-something woman who pulled out her phone and recorded when everyone else was frozen in shock, has stayed in touch with the Thompson family. She video calls with the twins once a month, sends them care packages at college, attends their graduations. She's become like a grandmother to them, proof that witnesses matter, that standing up connects us in profound ways. The other passengers from Flight 2847, many of them have stayed connected too. They've formed a kind of informal support group, checking in with each other, sharing how the incident affected them, processing the trauma of witnessing abuse and feeling helpless. But they're not helpless anymore. They're advocates, they're watchdogs, they're people who will never again stay silent when they see injustice. And the twins? Aiden got into Harvard Law School, following in his mother's footsteps, planning to specialize in civil rights law. Amara is at MIT on her full scholarship, studying aerospace engineering, because she wants to design the future of air travel, a future where everyone is treated with dignity. 6 months to the day after the incident on Flight 2847, Marcus takes his children to the cemetery where their mother is buried. It's a quiet morning, early enough that mist still clings to the grass, and they're the only ones there. Marcus places fresh flowers on the headstone. Lilies. They were her favorite. Amara kneels down, touching the engraved letters of her mother's name. "We made you proud, Mom," she whispers. "We didn't stay silent. We stood up, just like you taught us." Marcus's hand rests on the headstone, his wedding ring catching the morning light. "She always knew you would," he says softly. "From the day you were born, she knew you'd be stronger than and braver than us, better than the world tried to make you." Aiden adds his own flowers to the arrangement. "We're going to keep fighting, Mom, for everyone who can't fight for themselves, for everyone who thinks they're powerless. We're going to show them they're not." They stand together, the three of them, at that graveside. A father and his children, carrying forward the legacy of a woman who believed in justice, who taught them that dignity isn't earned, it's owed, who gave them the tools to survive in a world that would try to break them. And they didn't break. They didn't bend. They stood firm. Because that's what love does. That's what family does. That's what justice looks like when people refuse to accept that cruelty is just the way things are. This story is fictional, but the experiences it depicts are real for thousands of Black travelers every single year. The microaggressions, the assumptions, the disproportionate treatment, the humiliation, the feeling of being targeted simply for existing in a space where someone decided you don't belong. Dignity isn't earned through compliance or silence or making yourself small enough that people forget you're there. Dignity is owed to every person in every situation, without exception. So here's what I want you to take from this. Stand up, speak out. Don't stay silent when you witness injustice. Record it, report it. Be a witness that matters, because the Marcus Thompsons of the world can't be everywhere. The powerful father who swoops in to save the day isn't always going to be there. But you can be. You can be Mrs. Chen with her phone out, documenting the truth. You can be James, trying to intervene even when it's scary. You can be the passengers who refused compensation because they wanted their money to fight for something bigger than themselves. You have more power than you think. And silence, comfortable silence, complicit silence, is the enemy of justice. What would you have done on Flight 2847? If you were in that cabin, Watching those teenagers being abused, would you have pulled out your phone? Would you have spoken up? Would you have stood up when it mattered? Really think about that. Be honest with yourself. And then ask yourself, am I ready to be that person? Am I ready to be the witness that changes everything? Drop your answer in the comments below. Because this conversation matters. Your voice matters. And if you want to see more stories of justice, courage, and people who refuse to stay silent in the face of cruelty, show some love and hit that subscribe button, like and share the story. Because there are thousands of stories like this that need to be told. Thousands of moments where ordinary people become heroes simply by refusing to look away. The Thompson family changed an entire industry because they refused to stay silent. What will you change? Who will you stand up for? When will your moment come? Don't wait for permission. Don't wait for the perfect time. Don't wait for someone else to go first. Stand up. Speak out. Be the person who makes a difference. Because dignity isn't earned, it's owed. And it's time we all started acting like it. Flight attendant orders black twins to clean shoes with tongue. CEO father takes down airline.